Good evening, viewers, and welcome back to Prime Live. It is a motivational Monday with our resident motivation expert, Jabu Zwane. And today we'll be talking about discipline more than motivation. Let's take a look.
Yes, good evening, and welcome to Monday Motivation. We're speaking tonight about why it is more important to be disciplined than it is to have motivation. This is not in any way to say that motivation is not important. As we have been doing all these months, talking about the importance of motivation, and motivation can never ever be taken out of the equation of success. However, as a motivational coach, as a mindset development specialist, and also as somebody who thinks about success long term, I want to say categorically tonight that one of the reasons why many people fail to succeed is not so much because of a lack of motivation, but it is because of this one crucial aspect. What happens when you're not feeling motivated? What happens when you have given it all you've got, but you find yourself fatigued, exhausted, confused, even discouraged because some of the efforts that you've been putting in are not yielding for you the results that you were hoping to get? People like Michael Jordan, people like LeBron James, many athletes in the world, even people that have succeeded over a long period of time. I remember even today, earlier on, I was having a chat with this CEO of a startup company. The company has been running now for the last 6 years, and he was explaining to me how the company performed in the first 4 years of the business. 4 years of the business. I mean, the product that they were selling, on the first year, they only sold 15 of those. On the second year, they only sold 50 of those. On the third year, they only sold about 150 of those. But come on the fifth and the sixth year, they're selling over 1,000 products every single month. And you can think about that. Like, how do you motivate yourself? Or how do you continue when you've invested millions and millions of rands into a project or put a lot of time into a project and you're not finding those results? And the key thing that we're going to be speaking about tonight is this: discipline. If it is true that consistency is the strongest link in the chain of success, then it is also true that discipline is the strongest thread in the chain of consistency. It is the strongest thread that when all else fails, how do you get up? Without that determined resolve to be consistent, no matter the outcome, no matter the results, no matter the challenges, you have to be disciplined. Some people have spoken about discipline as doing what you're supposed to do even when you don't feel like it. It is the most important rule in the constitution of consistency. So when all else fails, that's what we're looking out to. So the question is then, how do we cultivate discipline? I think the most important mindset to have is understanding that, first of all, every single process of success has got its own steps that you've got to follow. That even though you may not have that fuel of motivation on that day because that client has said no, focusing on the goal ahead is important. My question to you is this: do you have your goals very clear? Do you have a vision board? Do you have a specific destination that you're going to? Are you tracking how far along the way are you? And one of the ways that we need to track our progress, especially, is to see how far we have come. And I find that a lot of people, many different times, they lose sight of how far along they have come because of how far ahead they still have to go. And this is where it can become discouraging when we start to judge the distance that we're going to on the basis of the distance of where we come from. If you think about it in this way, they say that business is like, it has that slow start, and then eventually when it hits that point of success, it can actually become a skyrocketing thing once you have developed that muscle of discipline. As somebody who's into sports and as somebody that has played sports fairly significantly and also learned different skills like playing piano, learning different languages, the start many times is quite slow and it can be quite discouraging. Let me make an example of many people that they can relate to. Do you remember the first time you were learning how to drive? I remember the first time I learned how to drive. The idea that I can be able to hold the steering wheel, change the gear, and then have my foot on the clutch at the same time, and also be able to focus on the road was probably the most overwhelming, most daunting thought that I ever had. Let alone thinking about what we do these days. Even these days people can even drive. Of course, the most dangerous thing to do, but holding their cell phones and having drinks and doing all kinds of different things. Because once you've cultivated the muscle of whatever you're doing, it becomes a lot easier for us to do. And this is what I want to talk about. In terms of what you're supposed to do, how often do you practice the skills that you need to succeed? Are you one of those people that believes in acquiring a skill as a once-off thing? Let's say you go to university, you get your degree, and once you graduated, you're under this illusion, intoxicated by your euphoria of receiving the certificate, that you have done what you're supposed to do. You'll find that in life, actually, that is only the beginning. That along the way, you've got to develop those skills, become competent, become proficient at them, and reach that high level of proficiency with them. And if you don't get to that point, things become harder and harder. And it is also this mindset of understanding that things do not necessarily get easier, but we get better. So what activities are you doing? How are you training your mindset? How are you cultivating the right mindsets to achieve what you are supposed to achieve? Do you have a specific personal development program specifically for the skills that you're supposed to have? And do you have mitigating factors? Like, how do you disrupt yourself when you get into that mode of feeling discouraged? So another big part of discipline is that self-awareness. How do you find yourself many times discouraged? And most of the time, you can actually almost tell, right? You can almost tell when your energy is starting to go down. And how do you ensure that you lift up your energies again? And most of the time, having that knowledge that I'm working towards something, I'm working towards a goal, I am making progress. And how do you ensure that? Of course, celebrate those small wins. Don't undermine the day of small things. It's one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible that says, do not despise this day of small things. And it can be, again, very discouraging to watch all the successes that have been displayed on social media when everybody's showing off, trying to show off how much they've achieved. And we start going into this mindset of, I also need my big day. I also need my big achievement so that I can display it on social media and get celebrated. But the reality of the matter is that a lot of people who are highly successful in the world, who are making massive moves, are not putting those out in social media. And they're not even showing off the work that is behind the scenes. And discipline is that work that you're supposed to put in behind the scenes. I was having a little chat earlier on as well about this, about how important it is to rather focus on the process and rather than those moments. What is the process that you're supposed to follow? Do you know what those steps are? Here's another thing as well. For discipline, surround yourself with what? Disciplined people. Hang around people that are grinding, people that will make you feel like you're not doing enough sometimes. 5 o'clock in the morning, they're up going to the gym. When everybody is busy eating the food that they're not supposed to eat, but now these guys, they've got their shakes. These women, they've got their fruits, and they're sticking to the routine. And because why is it important to hang around people who are disciplined? It's because behavior is infectious. Our surroundings, they impact us, they influence us. And so if you're hanging around people who are negative, who are constantly berating the bad situation in the country, the bad situation in the industry, how clients are, that is obviously going to discourage you. But when you are around disciplined people, they will give you tools, and they'll also give you that encouragement to keep on going. So again, watch out for your surroundings, watch out for the environment that you're in. The other crucial thing that you also have to be mindful of is that along with your goal, along with your vision board, accountability. Accountability. And I'll say it again. Accountability. Most people are not accountable. They are only driven by what? By the results and outcomes. But accountability says, what have I not done today? What am I supposed to do today? What am I supposed to do tomorrow? Where do I need to go? Who do I need to speak to? What do I need to learn? What is lacking? What am I supposed to do to go and get that? Because discipline forces you to what? To think. Motivation, on the other hand, it is that energy. It is that excited energy. But most of the time, motivation can also be a bit misguided, especially if there is no goal in mind and if it's just about getting the outcome, right? You can go just work on that energy. So think about it in this way. It's almost like this. Motivation is that fuel that you put in the car, right? To get the car to where it needs to go. But ultimately, how well that car runs, how well that car is going to last, that is what discipline is. And discipline is the service that you put your body under. How are you developing your muscles? The muscles of performance, the muscles of, again, skills as far as precision is concerned. How are you developing that? And the reason why these questions are so important is because you find that many of us have great ideas, but great ideas are only as good as the person that is going to be executing those ideas. If I am listening to somebody coming to pitch an idea and saying to me, Mr. Zwane, can you connect me with a venture capitalist? Can you connect me with somebody who can fund my business? One of the first things that I'm listening to is that I want to know, what have you gone through so far in trying to realize this business? I personally am very reluctant to fund or to encourage or to recommend somebody to be funded with a brand new business without a specific track record. It doesn't matter how amazing and how brilliant the idea is, unless I feel perhaps maybe if they're given a chance, they would be open to having a team that can support them, that can help them to achieve that. Because ideas are only, or the success of the ideas is only as good as the executor and the carrier of that idea. And if the carrier of that idea has not endured any kind of suffering to bring that idea to fruition, whether it be from the money that they've spent, because again, when you are in business, it requires discipline to handle money. How are you handling the money? If it shows in your money behavior that you are a careless and a reckless spender, that you don't think about how much you're spending, the first thing you do whenever you receive a batch of money is to get an expensive car, is to get an expensive laptop, is to go and celebrate and show off to the people in the world that, you know what, you've just received this money. And then come 6 months, 12 months down the line, there's no money again. Obviously, that person lacks discipline. So let's think about it in this way. Crucial areas that one has to develop discipline in. As I've said again, the first one is mindset. How consistent are you in developing the right mindset to succeed? The second one is emotional intelligence. Can you emotionally regulate yourself when you're feeling discouraged? Or do you allow the discouragement to get you to that point where you feel so low that you might even find yourself going towards the path of depression? In other words, are you emotionally resilient? To be emotionally resilient, you have to have the disciplined mindset again, and also the commitment and determination to succeed and to do what it's supposed to do. The third thing is, as far as the physical body is concerned, how disciplined are you with your physical body? That's one of the ways that we also see whether or not a person is disciplined, right? Is how do you handle yourself physically speaking? Because especially if you're reminded to, if there's a demand on your body to perform at a high level, how you treat yourself physically also can reflect that. The other one is about your mental discipline. How are you developing your brain? How are you developing your intelligence? How are you developing your intellectual resilience? Whenever you're faced with very difficult situations, do you find yourself stuck and unable to sustain a long-term demand on your intellectual capital? Can your intellectual capital last you the way? How do you ensure that? Are you watching podcasts? Are you reading books? Do you have a coach? Do you have a mentor? Are you constantly subjecting your mind to environments and to activities that help you to grow intellectually and also in terms of intelligence? And the other one, of course, which is probably even more very, very important, who's around you? I say this all the time, especially when I'm advising young people who are looking to date, I say this to them all the time, like, pay attention to who is around the person that you are interested in, because that determines how that person is going to treat you. Pay attention, for example, to how they're treating their friends. Pay attention to how their friends respond to them. Pay attention to how they're treating their family, how they're treating their siblings. The way that people are around the people that they are comfortable with is exactly how they're going to be once they become comfortable around you. So we are a sum total of whoever is around us. And so if you want to be with somebody that's disciplined, especially let's say, for example, you are somebody who's very disciplined. You get up, you go do your routine for the gym, you go do your routine as far as listening to podcasts, your meditation, you have a diet that you're following, and you have this incredible routine because you're heading somewhere in life. But then this beautiful person, this handsome guy, this beautiful woman catches your attention. If they are not in line, if they don't have any disciplines, the likelihood is that what? You're either going to influence them or they're going to influence you. And most of the time, sad to say, because it is a lot harder to be disciplined, the one that is experiencing the extreme amount of difficulty normally is the one that will capitulate to whatever is easier. In other words, think about it this way. Is it easier to pull somebody up or is it easier to pull somebody down? So if you're up there in terms of A game, be very careful that also you don't date somebody that you're going to have to pull up. Similarly speaking, for those who are disciplined in success, we look out for people that we don't have to constantly pull up. We're looking for people that we can run alongside, that we can walk alongside, that we can stand up with. And discipline, it is one of those crucial elements that we pay the most amount of money for. We pay the most amount of money for athletes. Why? Because they're disciplined. For the actors that are disciplined. For the business people that are disciplined. And how do we know that? We look at that by checking their track record, because we understand that ultimately motivation is not sufficient to sustain you over a long period of time. It may be good to kickstart you, but if you're going to last a long time, what you need is not motivation, but you need what? You need discipline. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. I hope that you've caught a few nuggets, a few helpful tips on how to cultivate discipline and why it is more important than motivation. My name is Jabu Zwane. Enjoy the rest of your programming. Good evening.